Good morning. Rob Brown here with Brendan. Got a great show in store for you today. It is Tuesday, February 25th. Weather's getting nice, a little peak at early spring. We got Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports, covers Georgia from over in Athens. He's one of the best. And also, he works the social media X guys and gals like nobody else. He and Kevin Skarbinski are on another level, putting content out, valuable content. Brendan,
another level.
Yeah, another level. Headlines, quick outline of 5 SEC basketball and football news stories. Number 1, Alabama versus Mississippi State tonight. What? Number 4, Bama hosts Mississippi State, who's number 22 in the country at Coleman Coliseum. Mark Sears, SEC Player of the Week. We've got big basketball scheduled tonight and tomorrow. Got 4 or 5 games left for most teams for the SEC championship regular season. Lots to talk about. Football going from 14 to 16. We're 12 right now. Where are we going to go there? We got all these power rankings.
9 games.
Yeah, a 9-game SEC schedule.
Big Ten, sleeping with the SEC, Sankeys, hanging out with weirdos.
Going to New Orleans and building up a lot of momentum. Hey, take a picture of that QR code. Brendan's always going to remind us, and he's right, of X right there. We're on YouTube and Facebook simultaneously on 7 channels at the same time. And so let's get started. Get Brendan and I will bring in Jordan Hill. And Jordan, love the background there. It looks like, after a game, what I used to be, the coaches on the road games had their banner behind them. Now, every time you look up, it looks like Calipari's the coach at Auburn because there's all that stuff. Or you're the coach at Georgia right there. I love that background. I'd love to find one.
I just feel like you're at a VIP party, actually.
Yeah.
Just getting your picture taken, on the walk or the red carpet.
And he is.
The red carpet. Oh, look at that. You can take that. That's like your new blog post, the red carpet.
That would be a great podcast for you called The Red Carpet Treatment, because red and black. And
giving you gold all day, Jordan.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, you're talking about basketball. Bring us up to speed. Year 3 of Mike White. How you think he's doing and what's happening in recruiting? Because there are within 150 miles of Athens enough basketball players to build a top 4 program.
Yeah, it's been solid. It's been one of those situations I'm fascinated to see how year 3 ends. Georgia 16-11 right now, 4-10 in the SEC. I think they're going to have to probably win 3 of their last 4 of the regular season to make the tournament. Yeah. Talking about a program that, hasn't made the tournament in 10 years. And, I'll give Mike White credit. He's raised the floor of the program. But the question now is how high can he take it? And this is sort of a situation where it may wind up being Mike's best chance to make the tournament. We were talking, Rob, before we started recording. Asa Newell, I think, has got a great chance to be a lottery pick. But, it's sort of trending in the same direction as Anthony Edwards with Tom Crean, where Anthony Edwards comes in and, it only takes Georgia so far, and he leaves after a year and goes and starts a fantastic NBA career. And they've got a solid class coming up to join the team. Jacob Wilkins is one of the big guys that they got, the son of Dominique, a really talented guy. But, it's a very interesting time with Georgia basketball because these next few games are so big. If they miss out on the tournament, it kind of makes the whole offseason worth really watching because, again, I think Asa Newell's got a great chance to go pro after a year. What do you do to replace your best player and how do you keep up in an SEC that is as deep as it's ever been? It's going to be a tough test ahead, and it makes games like Tuesday nights against the number 3 Florida Gators. Georgia's, I think, a 7.5-point underdog. If you could pull off a win like that at home, that would do wonders for Mike and really the whole program.
It would. And everybody looks at Georgia like they used to look at Florida football. Coach Bryant would say, if Florida ever gets their act together, we'll all be fighting for second. And when Florida gets their act together, they can be a dominant program, just like Georgia football has been. Somebody asked me a question, and you hear it. a couple of years ago, is Georgia a blue blood program? I'm like, hell yeah, they are. They're like the 10th winningest program in the history of college football. Then they reeled off back-to-back national championships. Does that put them in the club? But people are going to ask questions like that. They say the same thing about basketball. Are the Georgia fans, and I said this about Auburn and Alabama, I said, when their fans get as mad after a loss in basketball as they do in football, you're on the road to greatness. Are they getting like that at Georgia?
I don't think yet. I think the thing now is you've got a fan base. There's a lot of loyal fans, but there are a lot of fair weather fans that when it starts to trend the wrong way, they say, "Oh, this." I knew this was going to happen, and I've gotten into it with some folks on social media. It's
Good.
like, I mean, my thought, Rob, is if you don't believe in the team, you don't got to follow them. That's sort of what I got into. They led by 9 at Texas A&M at halftime, and there were folks who were like, "Well, they're going to blow it," and I was like, I mean, yeah, maybe, but why not at least be happy when they're playing well? And honestly, one of the funniest things of the season, they then, Rob, had the worst second half I may have ever seen. They went 12 and a half minutes without hitting a shot from the field, so kind of had egg on my face after that one. But no, I think it's again, they've got to build consistency, and to have a winner would go a long way. I mean, the comparison I always make is Auburn gymnastics. When SUNY came in, the spotlight was there and fans showed up because fans love supporting a winner. It is very easy to sell, this team is really good. When you look at Georgia basketball right now, we have a guy that has a chance to go one and done, but you got to win the games to get them there, to really keep fans there. They were there early in the season, home wins against Kentucky and Oklahoma. It was packed. The Auburn game that Auburn won by 2, very loud, great environment. But you're looking at a team that has lost, I think, 9 of its last 11, something like that. They're on a 4-game losing streak, the longest active one in the SEC. The fans for a sport like men's basketball at Georgia are only going to show up as long as you are winning, or at least winning consistently. And this team has kind of trailed off in February, and if they can win some of these games and put themselves back in the tournament hunt, I think it would go a long way just in the staying power of this program among the fans.
Yeah, and you've got a huge fan base like Florida, like Auburn. I mean, it's Atlanta's an hour away, and that basketball is popular and as hot as it is right now. When you look at the numbers, last year we talked about it. Kansas was the top revenue program in the country, $38 million. Top football program was Texas at $172 million. So I don't know what Georgia made last year. It was probably $150, something like that. Football is still the king, but it is fun. And Andy Landers for years had Georgia women's basketball, dominant program. All right, so from Athens, we'll keep you a few more minutes. Love having you on here. What are some other things happening football-wise? The class of 26, you've already got a start there. And we're a sanctuary show. We're trying to be. We try not to talk about those 2 topics. You know what I'm talking about. So we're 8 minutes and 38 seconds in, and we hadn't said either one of them. So let's keep the momentum going.
Yeah, with football, we're a couple of weeks away from the start of spring practice, and that'll be nice. Later this week, I'll really start previewing the position battles and what to know. Next week, I believe University of Georgia's on spring break, so that'll kind of be everybody's last chance to kind of, get loose, although I'm sure a lot of the players – can you hear me? Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's just a situation where, they're trying to make the most of what's left for spring ball. And, it's going to be a situation. I think Georgia's still going to have G-Day. There's been a lot of teams that are walking away from the spring games. But I think we'll have that for Georgia this year and see what happens.
Yeah, and Ellis Johnson was on with us yesterday, and he had sent me some stuff last week about Texas, Southern Cal, Nebraska dropping their games. And I said, I don't blame them because – the guys are there all summer for those 2 5-week sessions and all. And, Matt Rule's basing it on paranoia. I don't want to showcase my players. Hey, everybody knows who your roster is. I mean, that's a given. when it gets to bringing in guys that come in other than from high school recruiting classes, Georgia is maybe 6 guys a year might come in. Who are some new guys that have come in by different ways than basically the high school classes? Because Georgia every year is top 3 or 4 with Kirby out of
Yeah,
high
I
school.
mean, yeah, the guys to watch when it comes to guys that got out of the portal. Noah, I'd say the 2 big ones are Noah Thomas from Texas A&M, and then Zachariah Branch they got from USC. I think Zachariah Branch, guys, has a chance to be Georgia's leading receiver. He's a guy that has gotten a lot of hype since he gotten here. I've heard from some folks who feel like he's ahead of what they expected for a guy who just transferred in over the winter. But Noah Thomas is another guy that he's a big receiver, going to be playing that X position. To have him, they expect Colby Young to be back for this year. The X position was just a mess last year for Georgia. It wasn't what they expected. And, to have those guys are big. But to me, Zachariah Branch, just pay attention to him. I think he's going to have a big spring. He's got a chance to really shine for Georgia this fall.
Yeah, because that definitely was what was missing with Georgia last year was those guys out on the edge. And, of course, anything's going to be a drop-off when you lose Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers. That's just how it goes. And so, all right, so now looking ahead in the SEC, are you for the 9th game or are you against it? Because there's talk that might happen, and there are schools that are opposed to it, I'm sure, because it would affect their ability to become bowl eligible. And if your standards are that low, then you need to raise your standards. That's just my opinion.
Oh, I agree. I'm all for the 9-game schedule. I think we want to have as much action in these matchups. And I'll be honest, Rob, I am surprised that we're continuing to hear that the 9-game is a possibility. I kind of felt like I had an epiphany on y'all's show during the last football season where it kind of hit me where it's like, they're not going to – I thought they would not add a 9th game because of what we saw toward the end of last season. Florida knock out Ole Miss, Oklahoma knock out Alabama. You're kind of signing up for the possibility of more of that. But I'm for the 9-game. I want to see all these teams play each other. The biggest thing for me, you got to save Georgia, Auburn. You got to save Alabama, Tennessee. I don't think there is a strong enough case to say, well, we're going to stick with 8, even if that means getting rid of those rivalry games. I think we need these quality games. I think, to expand the conference like they did, adding Texas and Oklahoma, I think it only makes sense to go to 9 games. I can understand why they were hesitant. But again, I am surprised this conversation is still going. I really thought they would take last season and how it played out and say, we're better off sticking with 8 just because if we add 9, it may knock more of our teams out of the playoff hunt.
Yeah, well, you said it as eloquently as anybody, and then we referenced it yesterday. You don't want to lose those rivalries. So the 9th game protects them, and then the question was, does ESPN want to pay for that 9th game? Well, the SEC, again,
of course they do.
Years,
of course they do. I mean, come on, that's more content. You're going to tell me they're not going to pay for a 9th game in the hottest conference, and I mean, they're going to pay like 9 times.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the debate was, would they pay for one more game? Hell yeah. If you're getting your truck fixed and there's 5 things wrong with it and you only want to pay for 4 of them, that 5th one's going to bite you on the ass. You know that.
Last time I checked in the SEC, adding another game to any sport has never been a problem putting cheeks in the seats. That's all I'm saying.
It is one.
The one thing I would say, Rob, to me, the biggest question was this was coming basically a year after ESPN had just signed that new deal. Mm-hmm. So I think the question was, would they be willing to immediately go back to the table to negotiate it? This is just the fact that deal was so new. Would ESPN be willing to play ball? And I'm sure, I think they realize, like Brendan said, it's probably in their best interest too.
Well, it would be foolish because we saw what happened in 2020 when we went to 10 games. That was, as bad as things were on the surface, that was still a very exciting year. So I think it's going to be great. And you look at it, and we'll let you go. I know you got a big day ahead of you, but we don't know when SEC Media Days are going to be. We think the middle of July in Atlanta, and I'm looking forward to that. And the other thing is Georgia will have a G-Day game this year. A lot of schools getting rid of it. And number 3, Georgia will be one of the top 5 or 10 at the worst teams going the next year. Give us one more time the name, Zachariah Branch.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Receiver from USC.
Okay. When is Georgia's game, spring game?
April 12th. So we've got about a little bit over a month. And yeah. So they'll be starting spring ball in a couple weeks.
God, can you believe it? I'm back on it. I can't even right now.
Hey, we got Florida at Georgia in basketball this week. So, I mean, spring practice. Well, the birds are singing up here. We went from sub-zero temperatures last week to it's going to be 68 today up here. That's life in the South, man. All right, Jordan, tell people how they can follow you. And we always appreciate you put so much out on social media.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for retweeting. Yeah. I just tweeted you. So.
Yeah. Let us know what we can do to help you, but let people know how they can follow your nonstop Georgia 24/7 sports coverage.
Appreciate that. Dogs247.com, on Twitter at Jordan Davis Hill, on Twitter at Dogs247. And yeah, continuing through the off season, spring ball will be here before you know it. We'll have our podcast, the Junkyard Dogcast, live at 12 p.m. Eastern time. Go over to the Dogs247 YouTube and rolling right along. We'll have a busy day with an athletic association board meeting in the afternoon. And like Rob said, Georgia-Florida basketball tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Love it, man. Thank you so much. See you next week.
Bye, Jordan.
Go Dogs. All right. Hey, Brendan, man, these topics, I'm going to hit them up here. Look who we got, the professor here right now. The Matrix.
We don't need the topics when Jake's in. He knows the topics.
I was going to show something real quick here.
No. I mean, you have to do something technical, Rob. Let's just focus in on the show. Okay.
But Mississippi State got Alabama. Josh Hubbard, the Bulldogs beat 2 ranked teams last week. Chris Jans is tough as nails. Didn't get the win at Oklahoma, but they got Josh Hubbard, got Chris Jans, got some talent. Mississippi State seems like they're always good in basketball. I know this sounds corny, but what's going to get them over the hump and get a good seed and a favorable seed in the tournament with the games they have left? And good morning. Buenos dias, guten Tag.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, hey, it's an interesting, question on what gets Mississippi State, a good seed. And, I want to go look real quick. If you look at, let me look real quick and pull one thing here and see. I'm sure you guys might have talked about it. Where does Lenardi and some of the, and of course you get into some of the specifics on this, Rob, and this. If you get into Ken Palm and all this other stuff that's out there. But, right now, if we look through here in the NCAA bracket, what Lenardi posts, you've still got Auburn and Duke, Florida and Alabama sitting as your number 1 seeds. If you look around here and you find Mississippi State, who's gone from, a 5 or 6, Ole Miss, I see, has moved down to a 7 seed. Mississippi State, a 7 seed. So both schools right now are 7 seeds. And, when you talk about what can you do? I think you got to win some ball games. I mean, I know that sounds stupid and simple, but you got to win some ball games. And I think you want to get out of that 7, 8, 9, bracking, and you want to get more into that 5, 6. I think both schools can still do that, but you got to go win games. And for Mississippi State, Alabama's going to be a very tough one to go get. I think you may, obviously roll it out there, see what you can do. But I think the remainder of the season and the SEC tournament is where you're going to make your money.
Yeah.
Josh Hubbard, Mark Sears, Walter Clayton, Denver Jones, Zakai Ziegler. I mean, these are guys that when they're hot, they can kill you. Describe Josh Hubbard as you know him. His dad has a business in your building down there in Rankin. Are you in Rankin or Jackson or Madison?
Well, I live in Rankin, but our businesses are in Ridgeland. So we're Madison County. Yeah.
I've run the heat wave triathlon there many times at the Ross Barnett Reservoir, and they always tell us about the Gators. So far, nobody's been nabbed. But anyway, talk about Josh Hubbard, because that's a guy that can shoot the lights out of the ball. And I mean, he's really a hell of a leader on that team as well.
No, he is. And look, what Josh Hubbard you're seeing today, he's done since he's been playing high school basketball. We're playing here at Madison Ridgeland Academy. He's a guy that broke state records, set records at his school and put his team on his back. And he's doing the same thing here, at Mississippi State. And I think when you look at a guy, he's comes from a great family. He's a guy that's a gym rat. You know, all the cliches that you could say about those kind of guys, that's Josh Hubbard. And he is that to the T. And, you know, as Josh Hubbard goes Mississippi State. But, you know, one of the things that you see with Mississippi State is sometimes they have gotten lackadaisical defensively. That's not indicative of a Christian's team. And then sometimes offensively, like against Oklahoma, you kind of lose your rhythm offensively. Yeah. So, you know, I think this team has got to, you know, a good week last week, all things considered, you know, the 2 wins over ranked teams, obviously the loss at Oklahoma. But when you talk about this team now, you know, at Alabama, Tuscaloosa, that's going to be a very tough ball game to go grab. I think you got to look at LSU in Starkville, Texas in Starkville. You got to grab those 2. Arkansas is a winnable game on the road. That's a tough place to go grab one. But, you know, if you go 2-2 down the stretch here, I think you need to win a couple ball games in the tournament.
Yeah.
And a 6th seed looks to be about the ceiling here for this team.
All right. So, and I'm with you in the tournament. For some teams, maybe Florida, Auburn, Alabama, I can't imagine, though, any of those coaches telling those guys it's okay to lose, but it's not as hurtful to them if they do lose. Mississippi State goes in there and wins 2 or 3 games. That does nothing but help them, and that's why the tournaments. That's why I like the tournament, and people like these are kids 18 and nowadays to 25 years old because of the virus. We got guys that won't ever leave college like Tommy Boy, but bottom line,
there's nothing wrong with that. Okay.
No, I took 6 years. I was redshirted twice.
And a little
yeah, I was redshirted twice academically. It took me a while, but the excitement that's building toward Nashville is powerful. But we still got to finish the regular season. All right, Josh, we've been talking. We had Ellis Johnson. Jake. We had yesterday. I was talking about Josh Hubbard. Sorry, but Ellis Johnson was on in Franz Beard yesterday, and we're talking about. And we just did with Jordan Hill, a 9th game in the SEC, going 12 to 14 to 16. You go to 16, you have 8 games, no buys, just let's knock it out. 16, 17 game college football schedule. It's a privilege. It's not a grind. It's a privilege to play that many games. That means you're really good. Are you for a 9th game?
I am. Yeah, I'm for a 9th game. I have no problems with that. I mean, I heard you guys when I was coming in on the back end of your other interview there talking about, hey, what 2020 was like with the 10 games. And I think that was a fun season, all things considered with COVID and the lockdowns and everything that went on then. Yeah. But I think when you're talking about a 9th game, I think that's where they're headed is a 9th game. We're going to see obviously the expansion. Is it going to be 14 or 16? Probably a 14 move first and then a 16. But yeah, I am for the 9th game in the conference.
I am too. And Brendan's right, knowing TV like he does, his background, give me more content. And there was concerns, would they want to pay for that other game?
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it originated in the old TV think tank.
Yeah.
They all hang out. Just, they're all the executives. They all use the same washroom in this one. So don't think that they're that separated. So
yeah, they aren't. And let's bounce around if you don't mind the SEC. Yancey Porter typically joins us on Tuesdays, Rebel Yell Hotline. He is on a trip out of the country, be on assignment, vacation. He'll be back next week. But I want to get your thoughts. We're going to move around a little bit. The rise of Missouri, okay? That's a big story considering they went 0-19 last year. Dennis Gates, describe as you can the job he's doing, and let's look at also Arkansas after that because you are all over the Matrix, man.
Now we're talking which sport? We're talking about football or basketball?
Basketball.
Not very good.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. No, that's okay. When you look at what Missouri has done this year, I mean, you could definitely say this is one of the best coaching jobs in the conference and one of the best coaching jobs we've seen in quite a long time. I mean, you're talking about a Missouri team who has won 20 ball games. They're 9-5 in the conference. They're at a 3-way tie with Texas A&M and Tennessee, right behind, a couple games behind Alabama and Florida. But, I mean, nonetheless, I mean, this is a team that plays. I mean, this is a type of team that you could, hey, look, if you're talking about a team you may want to take further in your bracket pick'em contest that you're going to do, everybody's going to do, Missouri may be one of those teams. I mean, you're talking about, though, a team that's 17-1 at home. They have defended the home court as good as anybody in the SEC. Now on the road, like a lot of teams, a different road team, 3-5 on the road, 0-1 as far as neutral site games. But this is a team that's dangerous, right? I mean, this is a team that could shoot it, and it'll be fun to watch, where they're at. And I have not looked to see where they are projected as far as Lenardi is concerned. We'll see if we can pull that in real quickly to see where Missouri is going to set. You would think they're a 5 seed right now, projected as a 5. So that's a very dangerous 5 seed.
Yeah. Is he your SEC coach of the year right now based on his, body of work? I hate that term, but it is what it is. And that's another one I hate.
Right. No, I think based on resume, yes, he absolutely would be.
Okay. All right. So Buddy Martin is right now, I think he's going to come in here with us. I want to get, I love, and today, Jake, stay on a little bit longer if you can. The sports writers, and Brenda talks about these guys hang around together and hang out. And there's a lot of good thinking that comes from here. You've probably had Rick Cleveland on your show once or twice over the years. Oh, yeah. Man, you talk about, and we had him on the show this past year. When you talk to these guys, it's like getting to sit down with a great artist and say, so what was it like at the Sistine Chapel when you were painting those frescoes, Michael? But Buddy, you've been hearing this conversation, a 9th game. And, Buddy, you're old enough, I am too, to remember back when some SEC schools played 6 games, others played 7, and some played 8. Alabama was always quick to say, well, we're playing Vanderbilt to help them out with money. We'd always split the gate with them. No, it was an easy win is what it really was. Buddy, are you for the 9th game?
Good morning, first of all, Jake. I enjoy your work, and you're right. Dennis Gates is an amazing coach at Missouri, and I saw him on Feinbaum. He blew me away. I hate to use the word culture, but he has rebuilt that whole culture. Yeah. Remember, they beat Florida, and this is a team that's very dangerous. We'll see, but it's a long season. It's how you play the last few games that matters. But no, I think the 9th game is going to be inevitable. It's a bargaining chip right now, Jake. With the networks, they're going to try to figure this thing out. So many millions of dollars. I loved it when they played just SEC football, and I think it's proven that that's the cash cow, and that's where they'll wind up. But they got 1 more year doing this. I'm not pleased with the system now. I don't think you are either, Jake. How it is, I think it'll be good to do that. Now they got a drafting partners, like to call it, with Big Ten. Now these 2 guys are the kind of like the 800-pound gorillas sleep wherever they want to sleep. I do think it'd be the betterment of football for the most part, but get used to the idea that some programs just can't compete. They just can't. Of course, Arkansas can. They got all that Walmart money. But bottom line is some teams that some programs just can't compete. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens to the dynamics of the coaching and the players. But right now, as we're very excited about this Florida basketball team, and I'll tell you why, and I don't mean to dominate this with Florida stuff, but when you talk about the intrinsic value of a program, what you go to the ballpark or yard or field to see, what you care about in terms of your program, what you want it to be, this basketball team is everything that football has not been. Florida's basketball team is just absolutely blowing people away because they play hard. They have 10 guys they can play, and they're going to play 10 probably to the tournament. They dive on the ball on the 4-foot balls. They don't care who gets the credit. They don't care who gets the playing time. They want to get the playing time, but they can live with it, and they are unbelievably talented. And for the first time, they're going to have all their stars back on the floor tonight against Georgia, a team they should blow out, but the SEC is never easy on the road. So, yeah, I think Dennis Gates has really got to be the coach of the year right now. Arkansas and Cal has made some moves, but maybe not enough in the tank right now. And it's just exciting to see. Hey, look, we're a basketball conference now, right? This is unbelievable. People are so fired up about this Florida basketball team. And I'm sure they are at Arkansas as well. So it's a good thing. And when you get 12, 13 teams that might be in the tournament, never heard of that before. So, yeah, it's a good time right now. It's going to be a fabulous March.
Yeah, I agree. Jake, and he talked about Arkansas. When we were up in Fayetteville in early October for the Tennessee-Arkansas game, You talk about the Walton money. Their last two fundraising campaigns at Arkansas, they got a $400 and then a $500 million check from one of the Walton family members. And there's a bunch of them. And then there's the Tysons, the JB Hunts. There's a lot. But I want to get your thoughts. You look at Mississippi State, money, collectives. Then there's culture. It's campus clothing. It's campus culture, now, and coaching. Chris Jans is a hell of a coach. Look at Arkansas, John Calipari. They beat Missouri Saturday night, 92-85 up at Bud Walton Arena. That was a hell of a win. Wow. And Buddy's right. Missouri went on the road and beat Florida. That was like, wow, they're pretty good. Talk about Arkansas, your thoughts.
Look, I think you're seeing a much different Arkansas team than what we saw, at the first of the season. And just what you said, I mean, if you think long term, and you got to ask yourself, especially when you talk about basketball, how long is John Calipari, going to be there? I think you're looking at if we're setting a Vegas line, plus or minus 5 years, so plus or minus 5 or 6 years. So they have got the money; they're going to get players. And you referenced Mississippi State. I mean, as far as their collective is concerned, I think they're doing a good job with the Bulldog Collective or the Bulldog Initiative. I don't know that they're ever going to compete with, the Arkansas of the world. Sure, not going to compete with the top tier SEC teams. I think they're doing, more with less. And look at Chris Jan's team. They've been able to put a good basketball product on the court. But to your point, Arkansas is a team that's playing extremely well right now. We referenced Mississippi State having to go up there the last game of the regular season. So, I mean, they're going to have an opportunity at least to be in the conversation here in the next few weeks to get in this thing.
And, and it doesn't take as much money in basketball. But you know what? Today's February 25th. And 38 years ago on this date, no, he's a little bit older than that, but Brendan Martin, happy birthday, Brendan.
Yes, please.
His dad told me.
Birthday to Brendan. Please.
Happy birthday to Brendan.
Thanks. I totally didn't even think of it.
Hey, my quick story. When he was born by cesarean, the doctor came and said, put glasses on him. He looked like Buddy Martin, but he says the doctor was a big fan of baseball. And most people didn't know who this is.
Yeah.
Pepper Martin.
Pepper Martin. That's Pepper Martin. Now, who knows who Pepper Martin was?
Not me. I do not know.
Jake, do you know who Pepper Martin was?
I do not.
Yeah.
Gas House Gang.
Oh, wow.
With Dizzy Dean and the St. Louis Cardinals.
That's exactly right. Pepper Martin. I should have named him Pepper, but I didn't.
Thank God.
Yeah.
I didn't.
It was a happy day at the Martin house.
My mom had me by C-section. God bless my mom of today. Mom had me by C-section, and she apparently came out and she said, because Buddy's real name is Wilton, so he's Wilton Martin.
Love that name.
The second
Francis Martin.
Well, I didn't want to. You said it, not me. It's Wilton Francis Martin the second, and she says, "We are not naming him Wilton."
No, she said he's not naming him Wilton Francis Martin. I said okay, so I came up with the name Brendan Martin. I should have named you Francis. And then she said 6 months later, no, we should have named him Wilton Francis. Anyway, I give you Brendan.
I got mom's maiden name. So my maiden name is Sharp. So it's Brendan Sharp Martin. So my mother gave me a great name opposed to, I was almost Chip. I was almost Pepper. I think if I was a girl, I was going to be Molly. So, I got it. I got the good. So thank you very much for everyone.
Hey, happy birthday, man. We love you. And I love those old names. I wanted to name my first son after my grandfather, Greenfield, or his brother, Cadwalader.
That's a great name. Wow.
My wife was like, he'll get beat up and thrown in the bushes every day.
Jake, what was going to be your name if it wasn't Jake? What is your real name, Jake?
My real name is Jacob. And look, you talk about old names. It goes. This is Mississippi country right here.
Yeah,
Jacob,
right.
Jacob Ray is the name.
Jacob Ray.
And
That's
Jacob
a great
Ray.
name.
I love it.
I like that.
Yeah, but I go by Jake just because when I got to college, a lot of the professors at Mississippi State could not say Jacob. They called me Jason. And so my father, my grandfather, and a lot of people in my family just called me Jake. So I just went from Jake at that point. That was a great move until Jake from State Farm commercials came out. And then, and then let the jokes run about khakis. So.
Yeah. Khakis. Well,
I love the name Jake. It's a great name.
I do too. And you get these great names, the family names that have been around. I do love them. And I'm going to tell you something. You know what Buddy just said about Florida? And it's not like they don't have talent on that team. But Jake, you look at matrices. and the numbers so well, buddy. That's what Brendan and I are just fascinated, in awe. Jake puts these numbers out. Do this for us real quick before you go, because just one last thing before Rodney Orr from Tider Insider joins us. Tell us what's going on, what you got coming out, the talent matrix and everything like that, and how people can follow you, because you got a great show. I love being a guest on there. And if you ever need a Florida guy, Buddy will knock the lights out.
He's just gonna offer Buddy up for you. If you ever need something, Buddy's here for you, Jake.
No, we will absolutely do that.
He'll send your emails for you. What do you got?
It works both ways. I need to have Jake on my show too.
There we go. Yeah, we'll absolutely make that happen.
Yeah.
No, hey, you can find me on Twitter, just or X at Jake Wim. The show is 3 to 6 Monday through Friday here in Central Mississippi. We're just about statewide on the FM dial. You can definitely get us on WRKS. That's our call letters. That's WRKS, ESPN Radio. And, of course, find it on the TuneIn Radio app, the iHeartRadio app. We've got a lot of football numbers coming out as far as recruiting coming up, as far as talent matrix for the 2025 roster talent, quarterback rankings. There's a lot of stuff that we're going to be throwing up against the wall here in the next few weeks.
Well, hey, Jake, how far are you from Collins?
Collins, about from where I sit today, Collins about an hour. But from where I live, Collins is only about 40 minutes.
Brendan, you know who's from Collins?
No.
The Valendars. Our good
friend really?
From New York. Yeah. Anyway, I've been to Collins. Anyway, just want to know about geography.
Yeah, hey. Right there. I mean, not far at all.
Well, Jake, look, man, awesome stuff as always. We'll do it again next week. Have a great day. I'll be listening. I'm going to put that app on my phone. I love listening to these shows that our guests are on. We appreciate what you do.
Thanks so much. Be in touch, guys.
Thank you, Jake.
Hey, I'm wearing this striped shirt here. I got it Hewlett and Done. It's the Glacier National Park shirt, but I want to say something real quick. Winter Timber Outdoors in Athens, Alabama. Talk about them every day. Proud to have them as a sponsor. They've got all your shooting sports covered, all the gear, Sitka, Dixie decoys, duck camp, hats, shirts, pants, gloves, turkey calls, slate calls, box calls. It is turkey season. It's going to be starting in early March in a lot of the states in the South. The toughest thing is killing a turkey. You can get all the proper camo, the calls, the copper-plated loads, the 3.5s, the decoys, everything you need, the ground blinds, because a turkey is like chasing a ghost. It is true. They've got you covered with Yeti coolers. They've got everything, trail shoes, ammunition, and again, a great staff. Athens, Alabama, growing, building a store in Auburn, and they're going to put them in towns throughout the Southeastern Conference footprint. That's their goal. That's their plan. Conceive it, believe it, achieve it. Winter Timber Outdoors in Athens, Alabama. That was cool having Buddy come on. Rodney, it is happy birthday to Brendan. It is February 25th. We're having a great show today. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Rodney, Alabama.
First of all, happy birthday, Brendan.
Hey, thanks, Mr. Orr. I appreciate you, pal.
39?
Yep, 22. 22. That's what I tell my girlfriends. No, I'm just kidding. I'm 51 today. 51. Look how good. I got all my hair.
Congratulations,
good genes
man.
from my father. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Great genes from your mom and dad. You damn right. And he also happens to be brilliant genius. So,
brilliant. I get that from my father.
I promise you that. That's powerful. Rodney, are y'all going to keep the A-Day game? Ellis Johnson was on yesterday talking about for a lot of schools, for a lot of fan bases, it's so hard to get tickets. Going to the spring game is the only way they can take the family. It is a fun event, but times are different, we're told, because you don't want to showcase your players like everybody doesn't know who your roster is anyway. But what do you think is going to happen there with the spring game? Basketball, we're going to talk a little football. I know this is the basketball league, but let's talk some football before we get into Tide basketball.
Well, as far as A-Day, I mean, this year it's on, as far as I know. There hasn't been any announcements yet to otherwise. So sounds like, maybe this could become a trend where, schools drop this spring game. And obviously Nebraska, Matt Rule started it, I think, and then Texas and USC have followed suit. So, and I don't know if anyone else has, but Yeah, I could see others potentially following suit eventually. But look, I know people say, well, the rosters and all this stuff, and that all is true, and that coaches have ways of finding out different information about how players are developing or how they're looking, all of those different things. And all of those things are true. I do also understand the point of, exposing your team in a spring game to where, people could maybe potentially start to tamper a little bit. But, again, we'll see where this goes.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if some big corporate sponsor steps up at some of these spring games. The Taco Casa Alabama A-Day game, everybody gets a taco. I mean, there's ways you or
like
you play.
That's good. That's real good.
Well, yeah. And I think Brendan or Coach Johnson or maybe Franz yesterday made a great point. Play a Division II team in the spring because look,
scrimmage.
Yeah, it's a
Franz
scrimmage.
Talked about scrimmaging. It's the only sport we don't scrimmage each other in the SEC.
Yeah,
Dabo's been advocating that for years, having a spring game against another opponent.
Put some teeth behind it, make it like at least like an opponent. I don't. I mean, I'm not crazy about you guys. I don't like going to the orange and blue game. I mean, it's sort of like
they're boring.
And it's really boring.
You know what?
Wait, guys! You're forgetting one thing. It's for the fans. Okay,
it is. It's not. They don't go.
Look, don't go.
Barely.
Are you kidding me? 35, 40,000 people don't go.
That's always inflated number. Those because I'm there at the games and I'm like, find me 40,000 people in this stand right now. Okay. No way.
Can I just speak for the little man for 1 second, please?
I don't know.
Yes. Go ahead, buddy.
I won't talk then.
No, go, buddy.
The thing is that we're taking everything from the fans. Okay, it's about money.
Yeah.
They charge me for this. It's the one time they can go take their families to the ball yard and see some football players for free.
Yeah.
It's also built around, look, Florida's got like 4 teams in the top 10 in other spring sports. They play baseball. They have a great softball team. You have a chance to go see other games that weekend. It's a whole weekend. And it's usually good weather. I mean, why take it away because coaches don't like it? Listen, if it was coaches, they'd cancel Christmas because it competes with recruiting. That's how coaches think. So give the fans something here. Think about now, it doesn't help our program. How about the fans? Let's don't forget who runs college or ought to run college football before all the rich people took over.
Well, isn't somebody charging for spring games now? I thought that there was
$5.
Maybe
starts at $5.
Why not use it as a big fundraiser for a few charities that you want to support?
Lots of things you can do with it.
But you know what it really is, Rodney? It's a spring fling. Everybody's there. You typically have a baseball doubleheader, basketball. I mean, not basketball, but football. You've got softball. You make it a giant weekend for people to come to campus and not go broke doing it, Rodney.
Your spring fling is a different definition than my spring fling.
Yeah. Well, Rodney, Tider Insider, folks, it's only $48 a year. $48 a year. If you break that down, that is $4 a month. And that on a daily basis,
what, 16 cents, Rob?
Is about 13 cents a day for unparalleled coverage of the Alabama Crimson Tide since 1996, when Rodney Orr, in that book behind me, folks, look at it.
Oh my gosh. You're going to let him answer the first question first, Rob. You asked him a question. We got to go. Let's go question, and then let's do a book. So what do you think, Rodney?
Okay. What's the question? I'm lost here.
I'm lost. Look at my shirt. I'm crazy.
Oh my God. ADD Sports Talk here. It's my new show. It's going to be
Rodney, let me wipe. We're like Rich Little. Here we go. Let's try that again. I have forgotten the question. Rodney.
We were talking about spring games, and we were talking about Bama spring, and we were talking about people charging for games and what the future of these things are going to be. I guess my question really more, and this is for Buddy and Rodney, is it going to be harder at schools like Florida and Alabama that have a longer SEC history of these things and have a fan base that's much larger than maybe some of these others? Do you think that these will be a difficult these will be more of a difficult thing. So I know at Florida is going to be really hard to remove the orange and blue game because that's that's a tradition, right?
Yeah. A-Day. I mean, again, I was talking to someone about this a week or so ago, and I said, the tradition, A-Day is a big part of Alabama football.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always been there. It's always been, but especially after that 2007 when Nick Saban was welcomed here, in that A-Day game when literally there were no seats, Brendan. I mean, there were 92,000. I mean, it was a stunning deal. And then you had about 5 or 6, 10,000, whatever it was, outside trying to get in. They shut the gates. They ran out of water in the place. I mean, it was crazy. So it became an event, and I think that a lot of schools, it became a competition. Who's got the most rabid fan base? So it's a great tradition. So I do think for an Alabama or I'm sure Florida, Auburn, other schools, it would be a big deal. Now Texas, I can understand, man. Those people. They like the games and all of that stuff, but they got so much to do out there. They don't
really go see Austin City Limits again. They can't
yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, bottom line, I'm with Buddy. Fans own college football. They should own it. And I think that the interest, you generate a lot of interest too, because what they're really there for in the spring games is to get their pictures with the players and autographs. And we all remember as kids the pictures that we had of us at Fan Day or something like that. Well, you go in the spring, it's a lot easier to get out there on the field after the game, and that's where you bond with the team. So, and I can understand if you want to not have a spring game, so be it. But at least make it a fan day or something. I mean, Ole Miss started it last year with having the dunking competition and, getting their nails done during the game. I mean, at the game, that was so silly, but that's kind of where we are going. But at least the fans got to be there.
Hey, what's Rodney's book? I want to hear about it.
See it right there, bigger than Bama, right behind me. I'll grab it.
Pick it up, put it up there. By the way, Rodney,
Rodney, don't worry. I have a graphic and a QR code for you. There you go.
Thank you.
Yes, there you go.
Right
all right, so bigger than Bama. I can't wait. I'm going to order this book right now.
Well, I'll send you one, buddy. But and also I sent Brendan one. I think didn't I?
I have it. Yeah, I have it. So
Well, he's a different address than me, and I'm the reader.
I'll send you one, buddy. I'll get your address.
I'll put it up with all
same
my
address.
Yeah, I can get it from there. By the way, here's my new standard for you, and Rodney, I go back a ways. So about spring games, anything Alabama, what would the Bears say? What would the Bear would say would be, you need to go out to the spring game and take your mamas. Right?
Yeah.
And, what a genius he was. I knew Bear Bryant. I can't say he was a friend of mine, but I covered him. I've been around him. I won an award one time for writing a column way back in the dark ages about playing poker at an SEC meeting of Silver Springs with Barry Harmon Bryant.
Wow.
And it was amazing. That night he walked into the room. First time I ever laid eyes on him, barefooted, by the way. Had been smoking those Chesterfields and drinking whiskey. Stood there at the door. What an imposing figure he was. And I know there's some people who say, well, that was old school. Who cares? Let me tell you something. Bear Bryant will always be relevant, no matter what.
Buddy, the first Alabama game I got to attend in person, because I grew up in South Texas, originally from Mobile. But I grew up in South Texas, a huge Alabama fan. So I started watching Alabama in the late 60s. And then in 1978, I finally got to make the trek to Birmingham to Legion Field to see Alabama USC in a game where Alabama was number one. USC came in, knocked them off. But so John Robinson was the head coach at USC at the time. And 40 years later, 2018, 40 years later, guess who I bump into covering the Missouri-Alabama game here in Tuscaloosa? John Robinson's in the press box.
Yeah, I remember John.
He's calling the national radio broadcast. So I go up to him. We start chatting. What a nice guy he was, really. So I asked him, I said, did he ask him if he had any fond memories? Because he should. They beat Alabama that day, 24-14, dominated the game. You wouldn't believe what his memory was.
Bear Bryant.
Exactly. He said that. He told me. He said, we played really well that day. We probably played as well as we could play. Alabama probably didn't play as well as they could play. And he said, I'm walking across the field, and here comes Coach Bryant, had that houndstooth on. He said, the closer he got, the bigger he got.
Yeah.
He said, man, this guy was such an imposing physical figure. And he said, Coach Bryant just looked at me and said, John, you just beat the expletive out of us. And John said Coach Robinson said he looked up at him and he said, yes, sir. I'm sorry. That's
a great story. And Rob, allow me, if you will, to tell one Bear Bryant story.
Okay.
Feel
free. I love this stuff.
Which came from the great Alpha Ben Hoos, the Birmingham News back in the day. He and Benny Marshall were the scourge of newspaper press boxes. Great writers. This is my favorite Bear Bryant story. Remember, Rodney, you don't remember it, but you read about it. Bear Bryant's teams in the 60s were little bitty guys, the runts, right?
Right.
And when they were in the Nebraska game, when they were getting beat up and they would pat guys on the butt. Anyway, this is a great story. Alf told me this story. You know how it is when officials come into a locker room before the game to check with the head coaches, just to check, see if you have any strange plays, It's a ritual. They do this. There was a little guy named Billy Tease, Teas, played for Georgia Tech. I saw him play, little guy, but he was an official. He was still in awe of Bear Bryant. He was like whatever the back judge had, whatever he was. So Billy Tease came in the locker room, and they said, "Where's Coach Bryant?" And Billy Tease described this. They said the Alabama football team was all sitting down, organized, hair combed. They were just all buttoned up, whatever. They said, he's back there in the back. He said Billy Tease went back to the office of Bear Bryant. He had the houndstooth hat on, feet up on the desk, eye pulled down. He says, Coach, I'm Billy Tease. I'll be your back judge today. And I just want to check and see if there's any special plays that you have today that I should know about. He said, no, shucks, ain't nothing to worry about. He said, and just what you said, Rodney, I was in the presence of deity. I was there with Bear Bryant. I couldn't just let it go there. I had to say something. So he said, Coach, I just want to tell you, I've always respected you. I really love how you took little players, small men, and made them such great players. He said, oh, thanks very much. He said, no. Let me tell you, Coach, I think you could take a 6-foot guy and he could guard Wilt Chamberlain. Now, keep in mind, those days, Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah.
And Brian said, oh, thanks very much. I appreciate it. He said, no, thanks, Coach. And he walked out. On his way out of the locker room, he saw one of the players he knew. He stopped to say hi to him. He felt a tap on the shoulder like this. He turned around. It was Bear Bryant. And he said, but that ain't to say the big summits can't be guarded, though.
Yeah. Well, at a different time. I mean, and Buddy, Brendan, Rodney, everybody remembers this. These guys were big because bigger than life. We didn't see them all the time, but when you saw them in person.
Exactly.
I'll never forget as a 7th grader meeting one of my heroes, Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, Marlon Perkins at the Memphis Zoo. And I got my picture taken with him, and I didn't see Jim Fowler, who was really the guy that made the show. But Coach Bryant, Shug Jordan, General Nealon, when you were in their presence, you knew it that you were in the presence of somebody really special. I mean, that's what, Buddy, don't ever say you're from the dark age. That what you just said is absolute solid gold. I mean, that'd be like getting up here and talking to Robert Plant about music. I don't care what his age is. It's relevant. It's as relevant today as it was when you wrote it. So don't ever, I'm telling you, that's a cool story, wasn't it, Rodney?
It was a great story. It's a great story. And I'm sure he's got a lot of them, a lot more of them too. Yeah. It's
one day I'll tell you the story about watching the Texas-Oklahoma Orange Bowl. Oh my gosh, when Namath was playing. I was there for that. Unbelievable. Talk about pros on the field, Texas and Alabama.
Texas, yeah. That's funny that you say that. If you're talking about the 1965 Orange Bowl, whatever it was, right. when Joe Namath, Tommy Nobis at the goal line. I tell about this story, Buddy, in my book. about having the opportunity when I was a student here at Alabama to go out one night with Joe Namath. It was the night before Alabama's Bear Bryant's last Auburn game.
Yeah.
I know that Rob remembers fondly 1982, but so we go out and we're out and talking to Joe Namath about Coach Bryant, and I mean it was incredible. Just how much admiration that he had, for Coach Bryant. So it was just a lot of stories there, and a lot of really good stories about, Coach Bryant, obviously.
Well, that's the great writers. If without y'all writing this content, and Buddy does it, you do it, Jordan Hill, Jake, we can't remember. I mean, the verbal stories are great, but the written history is how we keep up with all this stuff.
I want to make sure, Jake, when you went out with Joe, he didn't let him drive, did you, by any chance? He's a driver.
No. Actually, we were in two separate cars, buddy.
Okay.
And he was with a guy that was the manager here on the team when he was a player. You may know him, Jack Hoodow Hicks.
I don't know him, but I can tell you this much. I know Joe. I remember when I went to dinner with Joe one night with friends in Orlando, and I was afraid to tell him I was a writer. There were only eight of us. And we ordered dinner, and by the way, there were several cocktails served beforehand. And Joe did a face plant in his plate at some point, okay? But that night, and I was afraid to tell him I was a writer, and he had just gotten this big contract. So we wound up being in the urinal at the same time. You know what guys do with the standing next to you talk. So I said, Joe, it's amazing what you've done there. Sonny Werble assigned you that big contract, and all that money was a great thing and whatever. And that was a big contract in those days. And he said, yeah, I'd negotiate that contract myself. It was $427,000. I went, oh my gosh, I got to write that down. And that night he told me what he did. And anyway, just an amazing, you have these moments, Rodney, you've had them, and Rob, you've had them, when you find yourself in the presence of greatness. It's like we're talking about. And you think, okay, this is it. I'm doing a book now, working on an autobiography one day. I'll finish it. And it's going to be a private file saying, okay, the night I ran into Mickey Mantle, when I sat with Carl your Sims in a restaurant, those are the precious moments, Rodney. And you have many of them in Alabama. I'm sure your fans love hearing about it.
Well, I'll tell you real quickly, and I know we're running out of time, but talking about that night with Joe Namath, Rob, you'll get a kick out of this. We went to a place in the Birmingham called the Cane Break. And it was a really popular bar in that area in what they call, I guess, the entertainment district, South Side Strip, whatever they call it.
5 points.
Yeah. So we're down there. Joe said, hey, I want to take you to this place. It was me and a couple other guys with Jack Hicks. He said, I want to take you to this place. He said, I want to introduce you to Bob Kane. He said, this guy owns this bar. I've known him for years. So we get over there, and Bob Kane, was really a great guy. He tells us, he says, look, he says, when Joe was a player here at Alabama, I thought Coach Bryant was going to shut my business down. He said, because when they would play here in Birmingham the night before the game, Joe would sneak out and come down here, and he had knocked back 3 or 4 drinks. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to be a disaster tomorrow. He said, Joe would go out and throw 3 touchdown passes. And he said, he's one of the few guys that could, you'd have to carry him back to the hotel room. And he said, then when the lights turn on at noon the next day, he's an All-American. But Joe told me this, and Rob, this is what you'll get a kick out of. We're sitting there at the front of the bar. It's about 3 or 4 of us, and this Auburn fan comes up, recognizes Joe, and this guy's wearing a toupee. So he's trying to get Joe's attention. Joe's ignoring him. So the guy takes his toupee off and says, look, Joe, I'm bald. So Joe looks at me, and he said, let's get away from some of these clowns. We go back. buddy, we go to the back. Bob Kane takes us to the back of the club.
Oh yeah.
There's a booth there, a couple of booths. And he said, here, guys, nobody will notice you here. Talking to Joe, of course. So we sit down. We sit there for an hour. Just Joe Namath. Me and Joe Namath Joe Namath and I just sitting there just talking. And, there was a lot of stories. But I'm sitting there thinking, here's a guy that I grew up watching with the Jets. I watched the 69 Super Bowl. I remember as a kid, just idolizing Joe Namath. And I'm sitting here right across from him, and we're just talking like two friends. And the one thing I'll tell you is Joe didn't want you to idolize him.
Right.
He wanted you. Hey, I'm just Joe. That's what he told me right off the bat. I told him, I said, hey, Joe, I watched you in the Super Bowl. And he said, hey, listen, man, that's great. I'm glad that, you saw me and all this stuff. He said, but listen, here's what I want. I want you to understand. I'm just Joe, man. I'm just Joe. Yeah. And that's really the kind of guy he was, or he is.
Yes, he was. And by the way, next time around, you got to go with me down memory lane to that Orange Bowl game when they drive down the field.
We talked about that, buddy.
On the goal line, he's got.
He told. I said, Joe, I said, Joe, did you score? And he said, no, I didn't score because they didn't give us the points. He said, but I crossed the goal line because I had to come back across it to argue with the referee.
Tommy Novus hit it that night.
Yeah.
The game. Yep.
Right. I mean, and that's, see, when you would watch TV growing up and you saw these guys, and if you ever saw them in person, I'll never forget my baseball coach when we were kids was an attorney, and Mr. Gibson was up in New York for a meeting. He goes, he told us before practice, he said, boys, you wouldn't believe who I bumped into on the street trying to get a cab last night. We were all like, who? He goes, Muhammad Ali. And he goes, he got the cab before I did. And I got on an elevator one time, freshman year at Auburn, for some tried-out fall formal in Atlanta at the Omni with Hank Stram, and he definitely had a head rug. That thing was right out of Persia. And Ray Malavisi, the coach of the Rams. And I'm on the elevator with him, just talking to him. And I mean, I grew up, and y'all did too. We were lucky enough to listen to Monday Night Football on the radio with Jack Buck and Hank Stram. How much better does it get than that? And the other thing is, you didn't get everything right when you wanted it. You had to wait a little while. How many times has my mom told me anything worth having in life is worth fighting for? But when you got that Sports Illustrated in your hand, you read it cover to cover.
Ran to the mailbox.
You knocked it down. I mean, and I remember Gator Bait newspaper back in the 90s. It was a newspaper. It used to come to WHBQ because I would get to be on the radio with Jeff Weinberger in Memphis, and he subscribed to Gator Bait. And I mean, Buddy and Brenda, Rodney, you're tighter insider. And I think about this like I'm going to talk to Ray Brakebill and Jack Turner, John's son. And, we lost John back in May, and Elizabeth this summer, two of the greatest people I've ever known, but also Alabama fans on another level. And I go back, Rodney, I first heard about you in 1996 because John and Logan and all the people, they were tighter insider people all the way. And that could be a collaboration. Buddy's book, what you're writing, Rodney, we better capture this stuff, because if we don't capture it from the people who really experienced it, it's not real, like what we've just heard on the show today. This is one of the best conversations. I've just been like Ferdy Pacheco, the great fight doctor, just watching this thing. But y'all go on a few more minutes and then we'll wrap it up. But this is what we love about this show: history, traditions, and heroes. And to me, the older the guest, the cooler the stories tend to be. That's just my opinion.
Buddy's going to tell us about Steve Spurrier's era one day.
There's a whole bunch of books right up there. If you can see them right there, called Steve Spurrier, head ball coach. And he was, I could regale you for several hours on that if you like. But the bottom line is, here's the secret. These guys made sports come alive for us. Yep. Spurrier made it so much fun to cover football. And by the way, just so I'm talking about it, the biggest win Florida ever had in college football was not the championship game. 1963 went to Tuscaloosa and beat Bear Bryant, first home game he ever lost. Florida 10-3. No, Spurrier was the next year. Okay. But the next year, Spurrier came in and he was they couldn't play as a freshman. And Spurrier drove them down the field. They were going to wheel him again. And it got down to the 7-yard line. and he lost where he was. He called a draw play with no timeouts left.
Oh,
And it was down by 3, whatever it was. And they stopped him. They kicked the field goal, no good. And Barry Bryant said, "I'm glad we had a home clock." All I got to say, because they should have tied him that year too. So that was amazing. You imagine, Rodney, you would know how big that was, beating Barry Bryant in Tuscaloosa.
well, let me tell you, I remember Spurrier coming here in 1990, and Alabama had the game, and Florida blocks a punt, scores a touchdown. They intercept about 3 passes, and Spurrier wins the game, gets out of here 17-13, as I recall.
Yeah.
And it was it's a big win for them. And
one of the biggest wins he had starting his coaching career.
Yeah, and Spurrier talked about, he kind of compared it to coming in when he was a player, or that Florida's beating Alabama. And, the thing about Spurrier, too, is, as I remember, buddy, and of course I was really young, probably when he came out of high school, I was really just an infant probably. But, the thing is, as the story goes, he narrowed his choices down to Alabama, Georgia Tech, and Florida. That's the way I recall it. And I think his mother or one of his parents wanted him to go to Alabama, and the other one wanted him to go to Georgia Tech, and he went to Florida.
Right. And you know why? I mean, Spurrier took every trip he could take, first of all. He must have taken 8 trips recruiting. And he took one to Florida when Ray Graves was the coach there. And Tennessee wanted to sign him to a basketball scholarship. Ray Mears. He was a great basketball player.
Yeah, right.
And also an all-state baseball pitcher.
Yeah.
But Spurrier came to Florida out of Johnson City to visit the Gainesville. It was like 74 degrees there and about 15 in Johnson City.
Yeah.
And he got sick, had to go to the hospital and had some kind of flu. But he got out, and they had a golf course there. And Ray Graves put him on the golf course to play. He fell in love with that Florida campus, with that whole thing, and he knew right then he was going to come to Florida.
Understandable. Yeah.
Well, and
Thank goodness.
I worked with my friend for years, Larry Higginbotham, played baseball for Coach Swayze at Ole Miss. When Spurrier took his visit to Ole Miss, Larry took him around. He goes, I didn't like him. I thought he was too cocky.
Well, he was.
Y'all should have signed him.
Yeah.
Who do you want other than the guy that's confident, But he exudes confidence. But another cool thing, you talk about these coaches, and y'all know this. Ralph Jordan Jr. is a good friend of mine, and he told me they were at Lake Martin. They had houses there, Coach Bryant and the Jordans on the lake. He said one time, we were visiting, and I was sitting out by myself watching a cowboy movie on TV. And Coach Bryant left the room and came out and said, "Hey, Junior, you mind if I come out here and what you watching?" He said, "A cowboy movie." He goes, "I like cowboy movies." I mean, people don't know what went on behind the scenes. And if you think these guys were rattled, Coach Bryant was in the Navy. He was going through Memphis, 1941, December 7th. Allegedly, guys, maybe to go interview with Arkansas about the head coaching job.
Yes.
Pearl Harbor hits, and around Forest City, he turns around and goes back and enlists in the Navy. Coach Jordan was involved. He fought Rommel in North Africa, landed at Sicily, wounded by an 88 millimeter German gun, a frag in the left shoulder, landing in Omaha Beach. 4 days later, got treated, went into the field hospital. And the guy said, "Captain," he said, "you've been shot." And he said, "I knew something had happened." He goes, "Well, why didn't you get help?" He said, "Well, sir, I was on the beach. I'm a combat engineer, and I had a job to do. We had to build a road so the boys could get up and beat the Germans so we can go back home." And he goes, "Well, we need to operate." He goes, "Where are you from?" He goes, "Selma." He said, "I'm from Alabama too." He goes, "Where'd you go to college?" And he said, "I went to Auburn." And he said, "I damn near bled to death on the operating table with the surgeon from Mobile who also went to Auburn, talking about the 1942 Auburn win over number 1 ranked Georgia, 27-13.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I think there's some cool stories.
Yeah. Let me give you one real quick. I got you
this
right
is
here.
awesome.
Because here's the thing. Right behind me, there's a picture. I don't think Don can pick it up. It's actually a graphic of Spurrier kicking the. Oh, it's too heavy on you can't. It's a kick. A Spurrier kicking the field goal that won him the Heisman Trophy against Auburn in 1965.
Yep.
Ralph Shug Jordan was the coach. What happened was incredible. This is an unbelievable story. Was Florida drove down the field to to about the 30-something, close to the 40-yard line, and they called timeout. Spurrier had a special kicking shoe. Yep. He kicked every now and then, not very often, but he could kick it further than anybody could. So Spurrier came off the field. This is how much autonomy Spurrier had. Came off the field, went over to the bench, put on his kicking shoe. Now, no one knew what he was doing. He wouldn't ask him grades. He was putting his kicking shoe on. And over on the sideline, one of the coaches said, "What's he going to do?" So I don't know. It could be a fake field goal. He said, but he might be kicking it. And Ralph Jordan says, "Well, you better hope he doesn't, because if he does, he'll make it." And he did. He made it. And of course, he won the Heisman. It was a big moment right then.
Well, Coach Jordan called him Steve Superior.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
You know what, guys?
Turn it real fast, Don.
There it is.
Turn it this way. Turn it this way.
Yeah.
I know it's hard to see.
Well,
anyway.
But that
other
is,
way, babe. Other way.
That was a cool moment. I mean, in history, you're right, winning the Heisman. And what we need to do, and we'll wrap it up, Rodney. Oh, that is cool. Oh, wow. We see that. That is cool. I mean, I hate the outcome, but
it's a great picture. It's actually a fresco. It's actually, anyway. Bottom line, that's Spurrier's famous moment.
Hey, buddy, one last thing, and then I'm gonna be out here.
Yeah, me too.
Well, Steve Spurrier's middle name.
Orr.
There you go. I mean, was his mom an Orr?
His mom was an Orr, and those who were really close to him, like Alabama, like Alan Trammell from Eufaula, may he rest in peace, who was close friend, called him Orr.
Yeah.
Only those people close to him were allowed to call him Orr. I call him Orr sometimes. And one day in a press conference, there was one writer he couldn't get along with. Larry Guest, may he rest in peace, he just recently died. And Spurrier had a feud with him, and they could not settle it. And Guest would come to the press conferences, and he'd ask him questions, and Spurrier wouldn't answer him. And one day, Larry said, "Orr, let me ask you a question." He said, "Don't call me that." It was a privilege to call him Orr.
Well, hey, that's wild.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I did not know an Orr, O-R-R. That's
yeah.
Spurrier,
Well, see, my dad's family's from Mobile, and his growing up. Of course, my dad would be over 100 years old, but his cousins and all moved to. A lot of them moved to East Tennessee.
Okay.
So you never know. There might be some connection there with Spurrier.
Very well be. Yeah. Only thing I can was a wide receiver named. It's a hockey player, Bobby Orr.
Bobby
Orr.
Yeah.
Bobby Orr.
Yeah. And then, of course, the wide receiver for the Colts, Jimmy Orr.
I was thinking of Jimmy. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. So, I mean, so many great stories. I'm sorry for digressing and taking you back, but I wanted to wish my son a happy birthday. 51. Can you believe that? And Rodney, it's always great to talk to you. Yours got
you
great
too, buddy.
stuff.
I'll get you a copy of my book.
Please do. And I'll send it to Brendan, and I would love to read it and have you on the show.
That'll be great.
It would be a phenomenal guest. Hey, Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider. It's only $48 a year. Rodney, thank you so much for taking time to share with us. You're one of the best people out there, and we look forward to doing this with you every week. We need to do a podcast, you, me, buddy, and I'm just going to direct traffic and hear these stories because people soak it up. It's rich, it's real, and it's authentic from good people. But Rodney, take care, and Buddy and I are going to talk about tonight's show, and we'll be back tomorrow. But Rodney, appreciate it.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, Rodney.
You too. Wow, Buddy, that was awesome. I like to always compare things to music, like Austin City Limits, or when Dad snuck in the Grand Ole Opry in 1949 or 1950, snuck in Nashville. It was sold out, snuck in, ran upstairs in the upper deck. He said half the people in there didn't have on shoes, wearing overalls and straw hats, drinking out of mason jars. Mm-hmm. He said the lineup that day on the Grand Ole Opry was Little Jimmy Dickens, Minnie Pearl, Roy Acuff, Jim Reeves, Eddie Arnold. And the guy that brought the house down, the last person to come out, was a man in a suit and a cowboy hat from the tiny town of Mount Olive, Alabama, Hank Williams. And he said it was as if, the big guy had come out on stage. But you can't beat great stories. Tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, Buddy Martin Show. I get to be on there. It's It's always a privilege to do it.
I think Lauren's going to be out of pocket, so it might
Yeah.
just be me and you. Right?
Hey.
You're gonna host tonight.
Hey, I'm going to be on with you. It's going to be fun. And we'll have executive producer extraordinaire, the birthday boy, Brendan Martin. And love having him as executive producer because your confidence level's at a lot higher level. Hey, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We're the most blessed people in the world. Every day, find excuses to win and help other people. It'll make you a much wealthier man for it. So thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. See you tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern on the Buddy Martin Show.